Well, thank you guys for hanging along. This is the last talk of the day, so a lot of good, um, I think, tenacity and patience here. Promise we'll keep it quick and try and get you out of here as soon as I can. Like Mark said, I am Aparna Sundar. This project was done in collaboration with our search team. It's also one of the newer users we're looking at. We do have three types of search users or three types of open search users that we're designing for and we're thinking through. And some of this informs other kinds of processes like curated experiences, also some of the feature requirements, and so on and so forth. What I'm going to do is let me first start with the role of research in OpenSearch itself. We use it at product level input. So you might have seen a survey that's out on our website. You might get emails from me wanting to talk to you guys. Want to understand your use cases and also want to understand how we can improve the product. We do have a managed services and we have large enterprise customers there, but they're with the managed services. OpenSearch project, because it's an open source product, we talk to our community very frequently. We have our community meetings. I usually will recruit from there. But in addition to that, we talk to the community one-on-one in deeper interviews and things like that. So this input kind of helps with the product level input, product level innovations. The other ways in which we engage with our users are, well, when we have UX, either flows or designs, we're trying to make some design decisions, we'll actually put it up on Git and then get up and then ask our users to come give us input. Or we might even go into our community meetings and share it with the public and then get user feedback in that particular way. The third way in which research is currently being used is through community feedback, anything from perceptions of trust, transparency, so on and so forth. We actually put it out to the community. And all this is from open source contributors, open source community that is kind of informing some of the decisions we make. All right, I wanted to introduce you to the virtuous cycle of search relevance. In the middle is Stavros. He is our search PM. And I just wanted to set this up as this is known as the virtuous cycle of search relevance. And according as we're developing our search solution, you can see there's the cyclical process of search processing, measurement analytics, and search tuning. I do have his permission to show his slide here. And as you can see, it's quite technical in terms of the capabilities during search processing, during measurement and analysis, during search tuning. And oftentimes in conferences, I've seen our PMs, our technical staff, our sales, our SAs go in and actually have to engage in a process of educating the user to use these particular solutions. So the question becomes, why do we need personas? Why do we need user flows? As you can see, this requires a lot of training. But when you think about it, our users, they actually follow a very sequential pattern. And that's the reason we actually need to walk the journey with the user to understand their particular user flow. So what I'm going to do in this particular talk is I will give some justification on why we have to curate user flows, talk about the importance of looking at user flows. I'll actually set out a search user framework, talk a little bit about personas and jobs to be done, and very specifically how we are approaching this, some of the research methodology that has informed the work here. And then I'm actually going to, I have a 3-minute demo on our Figma templates for those of our partners who use our OpenSearch services and are creating their own curated experience. This is an open source tool or toolkit that you can use as you are curating experiences for your search users as well. So why curate user flows? The three main reasons are usually the flows will guide the product through a very sequential task. It also, oftentimes users are not working on your product in isolation. You're working with other users, there are teams that are working together, and there are a lot of dependencies. And so it clarifies these particular interactions. It also highlights how what one user does impacts other users in their particular experiences. And then if there are potential pain points, we actually walk the journey with the user. So they articulate their pain points, give us some sense of the magnitude and the valence, so we know where to prioritize as well. So when you think about some of the components of our user flows, you have user goals. So when we do our interviews, we actually will start talking to the users. What are you trying to do? Not every user is trying to do the same thing. So if you take the search use case, you have e-commerce users that are very different from people trying to create search solutions for documents, search solutions for logs, so on and so forth. So we want to identify each of our users, their goals, what kinds of tasks they're trying to accomplish, what kind of situation is causing them to get into the tool in the first place. Our core user is the developer. So oftentimes they're in the API and then they get into the environment. But understanding those ingress points are important to kind of give them a natural starting point, give them the right documentation, and give them the right experience as well. And then understanding their decisions and any kind of branching, what if, where would they go, so on and so forth. So most of our interviews are structured as such to actually walk with empathy with the user per se. And then any kind of exit points, are they sharing their particular experience they've curated? Are they sharing their solutions? What are they doing with that? Who are they sharing with? Do they want it integrated with Slack? Is it just a link that they're sending out an email, so on and so forth? So understanding those different components of the user flow is therefore important. So some of the basics of creating the user flow is understanding the basic needs that the user has in terms of their behavior, and then those stakeholders that they're collaborating with, understanding that sequential journey of the customer, understanding what is needed before they do particular tasks, and also iterating and testing. And that's really important. And I'll show you two flows, one that were made on the R-Write a lot based on some assumptions, and one that evolved over time based on the user feedback as well. So the iteration and the testing becomes really important in terms of creating those user flows as well. So one more justification of looking at the looking at user flows is to understand how do users perceive technical concepts. I'm actually going to cover a little bit of episodic and semantic memory just to make that case of why there is a difference when you look at a conceptual problem versus going through the actual journey. I promise that is the only technically theoretical slide that I have put in here. But I think it makes a point really strong for looking at solutions through these different perspectives, and then how to influence our OpenSearch search users. So like I mentioned earlier, I showed you that conceptual diagram that Stavros put forward in terms of the virtuous cycle. So in essence, this is what is happening. Our users are creating search processing, then going into search tuning, then measurement analysis. And when you're looking at setting up your search solution, that's the iterative process you're going through. So there's a concept known as the semantic versus episodic memory. We all have this. This is how we navigate through the world. Semantic memory essentially is highly conceptual. If I were to show you that virtuous cycle and say this is how you are doing, for example, your lexical search, I can talk to you about that conceptually. I can talk to you about semantic search conceptually. And all this is things you will understand conceptually, and that is part of semantic memory. It is based on network theory. Episodic memory, on the other hand, is the memory that we use sequentially. What that means is we need prior knowledge to inform our next task, and we go through the world based on this episodic memory, which is longitudinal and time based. Oftentimes, when product developers think about solutions, we're thinking about it in a semantic way. This is the reason our users need a lot of documentation, they need a lot of training, they need a lot of coaching in terms of understanding how that particular solution was designed. In contrast, with episodic memory, like I said, you're walking the walk with the user, which is why the user journey then becomes interesting. When you're thinking about our implementers, when we think about our implementers, our developers, they're using both of this in tandem. Oftentimes, they're doing stuff highly conceptually. Our last presentation was actually a very good example of that, where everything was in code and they're thinking of solutions. And he was talking about data transfer, which is a process, he was switching in and out between that conceptual memory, and then stage by stage going through code, so to speak. So the two concepts of episodic and semantic memory, we tend to switch between these two. This helps with encoding shared processes, any kind of interaction or integration that are technical, and also gives us unique memory networks as well. So moving on to our search user search user framework. What we did was when we started working on creating the persona and creating the jobs to be done for this user, it's very important to pivot on the user. And this is the reason research is important, because we're not trying to educate the user as we're creating solutions. We are trying to empathize and understand and walk the walk with the user to understand what are those different motivations and what are they trying to solve at each particular stage. Because then when they get online, when they get on our product, they have a seamless flow that they can check box and say, yes, I've accomplished this, and then move to the next one. And that creates a foundation for really kind of meaningful user experiences. So when we started this process, our core persona was the search relevance engineer. And this is how we technically define this user. We went to the community, went to a lot of conferences, and search solution architects don't think of themselves as search relevance engineers. That's one of the things that they do. So we actually kept that as a persona, identified our screener, said this is the type of user we want to talk to, and did a whole host of follow-up research that I'll talk about. But in terms of defining this core persona, this person is responsible for optimizing search algorithms so that they create, they ensure accurate and meaningful search results. And they definitely are a technical professional who understands search algorithms. They use various techniques like natural language processing, ML, and large language models, other things currently that they are working with. So these individuals usually create, they are kind of prescribed to the organizations, they have these technical skills, and then they help set up the whole search solution. We'll go into this persona in a little bit. Some of the relevant skills that they have, there are all kinds of search relevance personas, people who are creating search solutions. When we went to the Haystack conference, I couldn't find two search engineers who had the same characteristics. There's a varied level of programming that they use. Some of them are deeply, they have a good understanding of, data architecting and then data analysis. Definitely, they understand how to create search solutions, and they're solving a particular problem, whether it's e-commerce or documentation search or any other kind of search solution. They have a very good understanding of what the end user will be looking for when they are searching. And oftentimes they're guided by those results that they need to show their end user. So they have a very good sense of problem solving and understanding of the end user as well. Within organizations, they're in charge of collaboration, developing any kind of algorithms to improve their search solutions, and also in terms of monitoring the results. Again, it's an iterative process in terms of refining the relevance. And so that performance monitoring becomes really important. What we also saw was there were other kinds of influences in terms of whether they had to incorporate relevance ranking based on something like newness of a restaurant, if the restaurant use case, or any kind of advertising, any other kind of business solutions that they needed to incorporate in what they were proposing. So what we did was we said, all right, our core product is going to help this curated experience that we create for our search user. The core persona is going to be that search relevance engineer. And we came up with this particular flow. This flow was done by Laura, who is who's our UX designer as well. So she created this flow based on talking to Stavros, based on talking to all the technical experts. And so we came up with these user flows. And it's a little hard to read for me, but hopefully you can read it on that big screen. But essentially, there are these 8 steps we proposed, which is importing, enriching, and indexing data, validate with a sample UI, retrieve information, experiment and evaluate, run automated regression tests, deliver a product, and that's kind of a slightly cyclical process and then analyzing logged user behavior and doing your A/B testing as well. So this was kind of our initial hypothesis of this is the journey that a user would take without validating it with the user. What we then did was to validate this, we had to first describe the who, like I mentioned to you. We weren't able to find a common pattern. And then we also had to go through the jobs to be done to validate the what needs to be done as well. So we're doing persona work, which is understanding commonalities or clusters of patterns and behaviors between this particular user and what are repeated patterns that they tend to do so we can create curated experiences as well. Now, in terms of creating the actual personas, there are different approaches that one can take in product development. You have the segmentation personas that are based, it's completely market oriented. You're not making any assumptions on the product, you're going out to the market, and in classic marketing style, you're actually having them do some psychographics or demographic information, providing their use cases, and create those classic segmentations based personas. These are flexible, scalable, because you're starting at scale with the market. You can also improve efficiency and performances, and there you can kind of base it on experience, expertise, and mastery as well. The second approach to personas are role-based, and in AWS, I found this to be really useful because sometimes product managers are making some assumptions of who that solution, like what is the use case, who is it going to solve for. And so role-based marketing is really helpful because now you're working with asset management, data management, you know how these dependencies are, and you can start really small with the core user group and create those particular personas and curate for their particular experience, thereby having a solution that is small. It's not yet scaled. It's really small. It works. We're building for builders, and then you can scale really quickly after that. And then you have goal-based personas as well, in terms of asking the users, what is it you're trying to accomplish, and then going with them in every step of the way. So what we did for our search personas, and which we are going to do for our observability and our security analytics personas as well, is we're going with the core group of users who will use these curated experiences to understand those dependencies and then go to a segmentation based persona and thereby be able to scale to the market that the community actually presents to us as well. So all the partners you're seeing here in the hallway, they will be the basis of our segmentation, saying some of you work in security analytics, some of you specialize here. Whatever it is you specialize in, we can then scale our role based into those particular markets, thereby identifying the needs for curated experiences, pain points in those markets, so on and so forth. All right, so with the jobs to be done, the things that we did was, of course, the research. We did a lot of ideation in terms of understanding what's the best way to present these solutions to the customers. We have the prototype. We're starting with the actual flow. So testing that, getting our users to kind of give us feedback on what they're thinking. Is this some of our search solution customers are highly technical. They already are creating their solutions for themselves using OpenSearch or a cocktail of other tools as well. So working with them to understand what makes the best kind of process was useful for us. And then any kind of iterative refinements as well, tweaking and changing the flow for now. All right, so this is an example of the ultimate kind of like our user journey that we wanted to create. So here on the left-hand side, you can see that persona being developed. One of the things I always need to iterate to the product team is that you can base your persona on one particular individual, but again, remember how I told you these users are so different. After research, you can come up with, they're usually fictitious. Personas are usually fictitious, informed by the research, but you can come up with certain kind of dependable and repeatable patterns that they're going through, and thereby describing them. We talk about things like their potential job titles, what are they trying to do, jobs to be done, their particular knowledge and skills, whether they're high code, low code, are they data heavy, are they platform heavy, what kind of know-how they have, and things like that. And this is really useful because it gives us our potential job titles, and that can go further there. And then when we actually do our jobs to be done, we're going through each stage. Like I mentioned to you, we're going through each part of the journey with the user, going to each stage and going to some depth, because that helps the designers understand the level of features and functionality that particular user would require in their experience, so to speak. All right, quickly going to touch on the research methodology. I did pull that a little bit through a couple slides saying we used it here or there. This is the actual chronological kind of methodology that I used. Our objectives were to, of course, understand that search relevance engineer, also understand what context they're finding themselves, what kind of tasks they're performing, where they need that assistance, where they would look for these tools and capabilities, and also dependencies on the other users. So for this, what we did was talk to 14 search relevance engineers from the community. Again, I'm calling them search relevance engineers. These are people who are creating search solutions for others. And then we had the Haystack conference attendees. So we recruited from the actual conferences in addition to talking to them. This was, got them on our interviews, actually showed them the flows and got feedback from that. And then in Berlin Buzzwords, we actually had that's filled with a lot of search architect or search solution individuals there. So we actually walked them through, the solution we were thinking about, getting their feedback, and then actually started creating these persona templates as well. So this is the mod. This was kind of like our modified flows based on our interviews with the Berlin Buzzwords engineers, and this is incorporated in the larger journey map of our search solution architect. The first thing we did, we said, let's come up with a framework. Who are the primary stakeholders of any kind of curated search experiences? The first person is going to be the end user. Most search solution people who create search solutions are trying to cater search results for that end user. So whether it's, again, someone shopping for the common pink dress or red shoes or whatever they're doing, their needs are foundational. And so while OpenSearch will not directly impact them, they will impact the way in which the search, the search person creating a search solution will use OpenSearch. And so our search engineer, we're now backed up from the terminology of search relevance engineer, because search can have different kind of end goals, not just relevance. It could be other things like accuracy or other kind of output metrics. And so we've called this person search engineer because depending on our segmentation studies, we're going to start thinking through this person differently. We also have the product manager. Usually they are very aware of how to curate search products or search solutions, but they're more business, they're more aligned to business. So they don't do things like fine tune the search relevance, write those algorithms, write the coding, but they do understand how to market their particular solution. And they have a very good understanding of search capabilities and open search as well. And then we have this persona called the rater. So Jefferson is a rater there because it's really common for some of these search solutions to actually go through but the more we talk to these people, what they're doing is like taking a survey. They're actually curating your search results. If you remember, one of our steps was testing and iteration. And all this is going to be on Figma, so you can get a better, uh, a much more high fidelity image from there if you needed it. But you have the rater who's essentially rating the search solutions that you're curating. And in some fashion, if we can cater to all these four, we may not start with curated experiences with all four of them. We'll definitely do it for the search engineer, but their output, their primary and secondary output could influence the other three. So for example, the product manager cares about monitoring, cares about latencies, cares about accuracies, cares about how to monetize the product. So they still would like to understand the search solution. So in some fashion, catering to them is helpful as well. So here's an example of Dipsy, the search architect or search engineer. Some of their pain points, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're doing, and just walks you through the journey of one of those users. Also created a kind of a search solution journey map, if you will, where we talk about the dependencies between different users. So for example, if you look at step 11 here, you can see 3 users that will require to actually share information and talk to each other. And then go in with quotes and pain points and things like that, which really is helpful for our designers to think through each of these flows and create a lot more depth in that particular case. So I gave you an example of one of the users here. If you are interested in kind of looking at details of this, we do have an open source Figma template to create those the the personas and the journey maps. And then we will also incrementally be adding search, then observability, and security analytics solutions. So if you are curating this for your particular use case using OpenSearch, you can kind of adapt it as needed. All right, this is a technical conferences, and all of us like demos. So what I have done is tip of hat to Carlos Canas. He's our designer in one of our designers in OpenSearch, and he has helped curate these templates. So I'll actually walk you through how you can actually access these templates on Figma and then use it for your purposes as well. So the Figma template right now has the generic template, and like I said, we're going to keep incrementally building on that. It's open to our community. You can customize it for your particular flow. And then, like I said, we're going to do search, then observability and security analytics. All right, so the template, when you go on Figma, you'll see that there's lots of different information like user libraries. We have our different resources there in terms of different icons, names. You have your persona card there as well. You also have the journey map with different layers, levels, with the action, thought, feeling, and all those different quotes that you can put in, dependencies that you can put in, tooling, all those things that you can put in. So you need to just download this and then use it for your particular purposes. So in this case, what we're going to do is show you some of these assets, how you can build one of these templates for yourself. So here we're getting in the template of this particular persona. And as you can see on the right-hand side, you can go in, you can customize each of the information there based on the research that you do. You can update their job titles. So this could be anyone. You can also change out those icons, and they're all in a drop down menu format. So you can go in there and you can put that in there. You can change the fonts, increase the size, reduce the size, the colors, and you can stage by stage build out your particular user journey as well using this template. And if you didn't like the titles that are there, you want to go into in depth with other tooling dependencies, any other things, you can build that as well. So as you can see here, we're building step by step each of those particular stages, and it's soon going to grow. So for example, our end user has only four parts of the journey. They're coming in, they know their need, they're searching for what they do, and then they are matching it with what their expectations were, and they're purchasing it. Whereas the actual search relevance engineer has that long, extended particular journey, and so you can actually customize it as such. And you can also create these different phases so you know when in the product development, where in the product development you're making that particular impact. So here, as you can align all these things, you can give it a background, and then you can, there are capabilities. If you're familiar with Figma, you can actually change out the background, customize it to your particular branding, your company's needs, your particular aesthetic preferences. This dark mode is there as well that you can use. So yeah, so that's the way you can kind of use our template that is provided on Figma. And if you need more information, there are 2 or 3 blogs that are out there. If you go to opensearch.org, the blogs that we put out, there is one blog on the actual research we did with our search customers. And there's another blog that we recently put out on how you can obtain so links to different Figma files. And then you also have a demo in a video format that you can look at if you wanted to use that as well. All right. Like I said, please catch up on the blog. Really appreciate your time, and thank you all for staying.